For my 31st birthday, my dad gifted me a disownment letter from all of us, Mom announced at the restaurant. My sister recorded my reaction for their entertainment. I thanked them, took the papers, and walked out. They had no idea the show was just beginning. My 31st birthday dinner was at a high-end steakhouse I couldn't care less about. I only went because my mother insisted it was a milestone. I should have known better. The atmosphere felt suffocating the moment I sat down. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, and my younger sister Elena had a smug, predatory smirk plastered across her face. We were waiting for dessert when my dad finally cleared his throat. He reached into his blazer and slid a thick, manila envelope across the white tablecloth. "Happy birthday, Mark," he said. His voice was completely devoid of warmth. I reached for it, assuming it was the contract for the new warehouse I had been negotiating. Instead, Elena suddenly raised her phone. The camera lens pointed squarely at my face, the red recording light glaring. "What's this?" I asked, looking at the camera. "Just open it," Mom said, taking a slow, theatrical sip of her wine. "It's from all of us." I broke the seal. Inside was a crisp, legally drafted and notarized document. I scanned the first few lines, and the ambient noise of the restaurant completely faded out. It was a formal declaration of disownment. They were cutting me out of the family trust, removing me from the board of directors and severing all ties. The final page had all three of their signatures. I realized instantly what this was about. They wanted to groom Elena's new husband, a slick corporate yes man, to take my place as vice president. They needed me out of the way, and they wanted to humiliate me in the process. They thought I was going to explode. They wanted a public scene. Elena was practically vibrating with excitement, waiting for me to scream, cry, or flip the table so she could post a freakout to the extended family group chat to justify their betrayal. Instead, my heart slowed down. I felt nothing but a terrifying absolute clarity. I carefully folded the papers and slid them into my interior jacket pocket. I looked at my father's nervous eyes, then at my mother's haughty posture, and finally straight into my sister's camera lens. "Thank you," I said softly. I stood up, dropped $200 bills on the table to cover my meal, and walked out of the restaurant without a single backward glance. They had absolutely no idea the show was just beginning. Here's the context they conveniently ignored. For the last 6 years, I was the invisible pillar, keeping our family's logistics firm from total collapse. Dad was a dinosaur who refused to modernize, and Mom drained company funds for country club memberships and luxury cars. Because they always treated me like a disposable workhorse, they never bothered to read the fine print of the tech infrastructure I built 3 years ago. I didn't just write the proprietary routing software our entire massive fleet depended on. I patented it under a separate private LLC, my LLC. I had been licensing it to the family business for a single $1 a year just to keep the lights on and the trucks moving. When I got to my car, I didn't punch the steering wheel. I calmly pulled out my laptop, tethered it to my phone, and logged into the master server. With 3 clicks, I revoked their enterprise license. Then I drafted a quick email to the rival firm that had been aggressively trying to buy us out. I forwarded them my minority shares for pennies on the dollar, just enough to trigger a hostile takeover vulnerability Dad had stupidly neglected to close. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was dead to them, and they were dead in the water. The silence lasted exactly 48 hours. On Tuesday morning, my phone lit up. First it was Dad, then Mom, then Elena. I didn't answer. I sat in the dark on my couch, sipping black coffee, watching the voicemails pile up. The first voicemail was Dad, his voice booming and arrogant, demanding to know why the dispatch screens across all 5 warehouses were black. The second, a few hours later, was Mom. Her tone was shrill, panicking about why our fiercest competitors were suddenly conducting an audit of our assets. The third was Elena, absolutely hysterical. "Mark, please pick up," she sobbed into the receiver. "Dad is having a panic attack. The lawyers are saying we don't own the system. The fleet is paralyzed. Mark, please, this isn't funny anymore. We are losing millions." I listened to it twice. It was a masterpiece. I never called them back. I packed up my apartment, finalized a lucrative job offer on the opposite coast, and changed my phone number. 6 months later, the family business formally filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The massive house Mom loved so much was foreclosed on. Elena's husband divorced her when the money dried up. I only broke my silence once. On the day their bankruptcy was finalized in court, I sent a small, unmarked package to the cheap rental apartment they were forced to share. Inside was a USB drive containing the video Elena took at the restaurant, perfectly edited to end right as I looked into the lens and said, "Thank you." Taped to the drive was a single handwritten note. "You said it was from all of you. Now this is from